episode 22. Welcome to Tech Twice Weekly for October 16th, 2014. This is your source for technology news and discussion every Monday and Thursday evening. I'm your host, Ben White, and I'm back to cover the news with my good friend Eric Fee. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. I'm really happy I bought a label maker.
It's a good place to be in everyone's life. Midlife label maker crisis. You know, some people increase the ginkgo in their diet. Some people buy label makers.
It's a good day.
Get that off Amazon Prime, I assume?
Obviously, it was like $20. It's awesome. Prints all kinds of labels.
Nice. Is it actual print, or is it the old style where it punches?
Oh, it's a print. It prints one, and it's got all these nifty features like borders and symbols and languages, text size.
Have emoji?
It does have some smiley faces and other symbols.
Excellent. Well, enjoy.
Labeling in my future. I even bought a spare tape.
If I have any label needs, I will come knocking on your door.
Yeah, that'll happen. I'm selfish. It's all for me.
Actually, I could see using a label maker to help organize my Ethernet cables and let me know what they run to without having to guess.
See? The possibilities are endless.
But I'm not one of those retro label makers that has the punch on like a blue tape.
Yeah.
Like a raised punch print.
Those are neat, I guess. They're also harder to make and expensive. And you can't make little flags out of them and stuff.
Right, because they crack when you bend them. All right, well, I guess that's enough label maker lamenting.
Someday you too will have one, Ben. If you save really hard and work your butt off, you too can have a label maker.
This is a tech show, so with that being said, we'll get into our top stories. Kicking things off, I want to cover Apple's big event from this morning. Many sites have covered this news all day long, so I'm going to keep ours fairly brief. The Verge has an excellent summary of the event, which, as expected, new iPads were announced. The iPad Air 2, which has gotten thinner and faster, as well as the iPad Mini 3 getting the Touch ID sensor, but still running last year's processor. For Mac computers, a Retina iMac was announced, offering a 27-inch display with a 5120 by 2880 display resolution. Huge! I wouldn't mind just having that as a monitor. That's crazy. But on the flip side, it is launching for a starting price of $2,499, and that includes a 1 terabyte Fusion drive as well as 8 gigabytes of system memory. Wah, wah. I guess 8 is enough to get by for most desktop usage, but if I'm going to drop $2,500 on a computer, I'm going to do a whole lot more with it than just basic desktop usage. But that being said, the Mac Mini was also refreshed with a new CPU and also offering a Fusion drive. It will be hitting the market starting at $499. Of course, paired with the computer announcements is the official release of OS X Yosemite. Apple Pay was also announced to be going live on Monday as well. Still no date for the Apple smartwatch, however. As predicted, Google and Motorola released their next generation of Nexus devices yesterday. This included the Nexus 6, which will begin pre-orders in late October and begin shipping in early November, starting at $649 in the Google Play Store for an unlocked version. It will be offered in Midnight Blue and Cloud White. in 32 and 64 gigabyte varieties. The announcement also included Google's new HTC designed tablet, the Nexus 9. It will be available for pre-order starting this Friday and will begin shipping November 23rd, starting at $399. It will come in black or white and three memory configurations: 16 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes, and 32 gigabytes with LTE. The device does not feature a micro SD card slot for expanded memory, though. Lastly, the announcement brought a new device to the table, the Nexus Player, a set-top streaming box that looks aimed to compete with the Amazon Fire Box. It includes 8 gigabytes of storage on board with 802.11ac Wi-Fi connectivity. It will be available for $99 in the Google Play Store for pre-order this Friday, tomorrow. I know we were both talking about this for a couple of weeks now. Eric, what did you think about the Google announcement?
I think that's pretty par for the course. I'm surprised at the price of the Nexus 6.
That seems to be the consensus for most of the blogs and tech journalists I've been reading. Is the big thing that stands out is the Nexus 6 price, because the Nexus 5 was groundbreaking in the hardware it offered for a very reasonable price tag for a carrier unlocked device. And now $649 is a lot of money for a carrier unlocked device. It really doesn't, it almost encourages people to buy the subsidized versions.
Well, that's, most people would buy them anyways, given the choice, simply because sometimes they can be cheaper. And most people do stick with phones for a while, and carriers are moving toward the one-year upgrade availability. One thing I also will mention is that from the news I read, it said that the Nexus 9 was going to be released on November 3rd.
For shipping, you mean?
I'm not sure. I was just reading an article, not the one linked, but a different one, and it said that the Nexus 9 is supposed to be released November 3rd, not 23rd.
Yes. If I said 23rd, I misspoke. In my show notes here, I've got November 3rd, starting at $399.
Which is pretty affordable too, compared to some other tablets.
Yeah, I think the Nexus 9 pricing makes sense. It seems reasonable. It's a nice tablet with a nice screen, a good processor, and I think $399 is a good place to start for a 16 gigabyte device, especially with how much cloud storage is available these days.
Yeah, I was reading that the tablet's actually pretty fast in comparison. It's pretty quick.
Right? But I don't know. I was really, really excited for the Nexus 6. And not that I have any problem with my Nexus 5. It runs great. I have no reason to upgrade that device. But I really liked the larger screen size being offered in the Nexus 6 form factor. But for $650, I just can't do it.
My favorite thing so far is that the Nexus 4 and 5 will both get Android Lollipop. That's the best news out of all that I could get.
Yeah, that actually is probably pretty good. And Sony has also announced that their entire Xperia line will be getting Android L Lollipop as well. I know you'd mentioned interest in the Xperia Compact before.
Yeah, the Z3. I'm not sure if it's going to be coming to carriers in my area or not, or what the whole deal is with that. It'll depend. I may just be sticking with the Nexus 5 for the long haul.
And I think that's really the takeaway here, is that the Nexus 6 is great, and it's a refreshed hardware and all that, but unlike a lot of phones, the Nexus 5 is still running great. I don't feel like it's sluggish in the least.
Same here.
Yeah, I mean, I've yet to find anything I could throw at it that would slow it down. So we'll see. Maybe I'll take a Christmas bonus and pick up the Nexus 6. Maybe I really want that larger screen, but
Just buy Nexus 9, bro.
that's actually possible. I mean, I could go that route and using Google Hangouts with SMS built in and with the Hangout dialer built in, take all my calls over Wi-Fi. That is feasible.
Bluetooth headset.
And considering there's even the 32 gig with LTE, I could go that route if Ting supports the device.
Yeah, I'm still looking for the 4 GB Chromebooks to go on sale. Some did earlier this month on Woot, but I was unfortunately out of money from the move.
A 4 GB Chromebook? That seems awful small.
Well, in memory.
Oh, you're talking about RAM 4 GB.
Yeah, the hard disk space on the Chromebooks is hardly important.
I guess that's true. I mean, it's all cloud. You're not putting anything on there unless you're going to try and flip it into something else.
Right, and there's no reason why I couldn't have a USB stick with any other files on it that I need.
Yeah, USB drives are getting pretty tiny these days. You could really even have one hanging out the side and be fairly unobtrusive.
Yeah, I have like a whole giant stack of 4 GB ones I use for managing my music in my car, so it's not like I don't have them laying around.
Nice. Well, following up on Tuesday's story, TechCrunch is covering. I was going to ask you, how do you pronounce this web server? You said it the other day on the show, and I couldn't quite remember how they pronounced their product.
Nginx.
Nginx. There we go. Okay. Well, TechCrunch is covering Nginx celebrating their 10th birthday. The open source web server has released some user statistics showing that over the last 12 months, Nginx usage has increased 54%, representing a 41% market share in the top 10,000 busiest websites on the internet. Over the last 4 years, they've grown 400% total. So it goes to show, Apache is definitely not dominating the market. There is competitors for them out there, and I think it's always interesting to see what's chasing the leader, because the leader has to innovate based on their closest competitor. And in this case, doing a little bit of reading on Nginx, it kind of feels like in order for Apache to compete with them in interest, they really need to find a way to make themselves thinner and lighter as far as a web server goes, which has never truly been Apache's strength. So I think they're two different things, probably with two different purposes. And I don't know, you might be able to speak better to that, Eric, than I can.
What I will say is that Nginx serves a specific purpose. It can be a general purpose web server. It can be used for load balancing, but to be small and compact, it loses out on certain features that make Apache really valuable. Apache is good at a great many things, especially with being a container and hosting other processes. So for example, if you're running Tomcat or other kind of important and intensive web applications, Apache is still what you use. But for other uses, Nginx can be very useful. Nginx does not really do the hosting of interpreters or other processes. For example, with Apache, mod PHP actually integrates the PHP interpreter into the Apache process. But with Nginx, Nginx has nothing to do with PHP. If you want to use PHP in Nginx, you need to use a fast CGI gateway. And that's kind of the difference in architecture. Really, when you're designing a website, you don't choose Nginx or Apache because that's what you like better. You choose what you're going to need to host what you're serving. And a lot of times, even if you do use Apache to host your website, you will use Nginx maybe as a load balancer or a gateway or in between or whatever. So it's important to realize that Nginx and Apache don't necessarily directly compete against each other. They're different products and they cover different goals. and a sysadmin or ops director will choose which one they're going to be using for their products.
Excellent. No, thank you for breaking that out. That makes a lot more sense to me. I mean, seems like judging them as two web servers is really too shallow. That both products really go much deeper than that to be able to compare them.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, the next web is reporting on CBS debuting a new service called CBS All Access. The service will provide subscribers with access to all current shows, with new episodes of shows being available 24 hours after they broadcast on air. There will also be a large back catalog of episodes from past shows on CBS, including Star Trek, among others. To get in, you only have to pay $5.99 a month, and all new signups are including a free 1-week trial. Do you think you'd sign up for this service, Eric?
It's very possible. CBS has had a lot of good content over the years, and getting access to their back catalog alone would be pretty fun. I do like Star Trek, and I think that this move to these content companies providing online services to stream their media is excellent. I don't think that they'll replace Netflix in hours spent watching or even the quality of the online experience, but it just goes to show that these companies are finally embracing a new way of doing business.
I think my biggest concern is if it's too little too late for a lot of people, because I mean a certain segment of the market is going to jump in because they haven't found an alternate solution yet, especially if they're very non-technical. They've just been going without if they've cord cut. And yet a lot of the more technical savvy people have gone with solutions like Plex and have been just collecting shows from the gray market and getting their content that way. And I don't know if a pay service like this has enough allure to bring people back to the clear side of the law, so to speak.
Well, think of it like this: if you subscribed every month, which you might not necessarily do simply because shows don't run year long, you might choose to, if you even if you choose to use this service all year long, it's $72 minus 12 cents. So $72 a year, they get access to their back catalog and all their new stuff. If you have, and especially if there is access with set-top boxes like Roku or other easily available, purchasable, and not only that, inexpensive ways to watch the content, I think it's a very positive, a move in the right direction. I think that if every other big network out there chose to do something similar, it might get a little bit hard because you don't want to be spending $6 a month on 6 or 7 different services, being Netflix and CBS and whatever, and HBO also. HBO introduced that thing also, but as it stands now, if you have HBO and Netflix and this, your monthly bill is going to be significantly less than if you had cable, and you still have access to the mother load of content. Like, you cannot watch it all even if you wanted to.
Right. I mean, that's definitely true. But before this service exists, I mean, I'm sure you've been watching some TV content here and there, and the big question to me is, I get a lot of my TV content over Usenet. I've been participating in the gray market of TV downloads for a long time now, and I'm not sure if this offering from CBS is enough to bring me back into the fold of paying for content.
Well,
It's not like music for me where I can justify paying for the content because I feel like I'm giving directly back to the creators.
well, it all goes back to users will do what's easiest. And for most people, spending $6 a month is very easy to get what they want. And if the usability is good, like they have good applications for viewing this content, then I have no doubt that it will be wildly popular and probably very successful.
I suppose the cord cutters who are downloading their TV from other means are probably, in the scheme of things, a small minority.
Oh, I think so, definitely. Not only that, but a lot of people like me chose to just cut this kind of stuff out. I don't watch things that aren't on Netflix or aren't or I don't get from Netflix DVDs. I just don't watch that stuff. And the fact that and Amazon Prime. So not being able to watch this stuff, I don't I don't feel like my life is any less rich. But being able to get access to it, well, why not? $6 is not a hell of a lot to pay.
Right. I mean, I think the price point is definitely in the right place. It's the price of a cup of coffee. Skip one Starbucks in the morning, and you've paid for your CBS entertainment for the month.
Exactly.
Well, the next story we got here is kind of an interesting one, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes, and I hope it gets followed up on. Engadget brings up news on Google looking into offering super fast internet over unused wireless spectrum. They recently applied to the FCC for permission to begin testing internet transmission over an unused frequency that would support transmitting large amounts of data over a line of sight connection. This is in the San Francisco area. Keep in mind, however, that this is just research, so it doesn't mean anything public will necessarily come from it. What do you think about this idea? I mean, I know internet over microwave has been a thing for a long time, but do you think this is something Google could be looking at for a residential thing, or just maybe internal data transfers between data centers?
I'm not sure. The idea of the large amounts of data is a little bit vague. So it's kind of, we'd have to get some clarification on what exactly they're talking about. But I highly doubt it's for consumers. Line of sight is very hard to get, and not only that, but depending on the spectrum, it might be out of the hands of regular user equipment being able to transmit it back.
That's a good point. The brief article from Engadget doesn't mention if it's a two-way transfer of data.
Also, 4G right now is still really fast. It is fast enough, in fact, that we hardly even, as phone users, we hardly have a chance to use it up the amount of bandwidth that it offers. Because if we max out our 4G bandwidth, we would use up our monthly allotments extremely quickly.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I hear a lot of people talking about LTE as a way to use more data faster, which whatever. But I think you're right. Most people aren't coming anywhere close to saturating the bandwidth throughput available over their LTE connection, simply because they run out of data before they could get to that point.
Right. And really, an LTE modem would be more than fast enough for most users. Um, the only thing that LTE is not really super great at is the latency time in comparison with, say, a cable modem, and with maximum throughput, because we're seeing large amounts of bandwidth being used for high definition video. So, but besides that, for standard definition video and for the internet, LTE is more than fast enough for the majority of users. And if your signal is good, it can be good enough for high def video too. The fact of the matter is we're just not using it enough because phone companies are kind of strangleholding us with data caps.
Right, right. And that's been an issue for a long time. All right. Well, our last story is kind of a fun one. Tua is passing along a story about a German man who has built a working iPhone in the game Minecraft. The in game device features its own mini applications, including a calendar, a weather app, a painting program, and working buttons. So you can actually open an application and then push the home button on the in game iPhone to get back to the home screen. We'll have a link to this in the show notes. There's a video, and it is all in German, but I'd encourage anybody who's a big Minecraft fan to check it out. It's a really impressive um, build invention in Minecraft, and it really takes what you can do in that game to the next level. I was pretty blown away when I took a look at that. So that does it for our headlines today. And as far as our tech toys you wish you could buy, there's really only one I'm going to take a look at today, and it might end up actually covering our discussion topic. But have you heard about this Anon-Box Tor privacy router, Eric?
Yes, I have.
And I've been following on this a little bit. There seems to be some serious controversy brewing about this little box. To fill in the backstory, Anon Box is being funded on Kickstarter as a crowdfunding um, device. It's a little box, small enough to fit two inside a pack of cigarettes as it's being marketed. It's powered over USB, and it has one Ethernet port for LAN and one Ethernet port for WAN, and internal is a wireless radio. And the concept is you plug a cable from your router into the WAN port, and from there, any wireless connections that connect to the device can then be on the Tor network, being encrypted and anonymous over the internet. Of course, this has raised a lot of security concerns. The device, first off, had some controversy surrounding it because originally the inventors said that the board and case were custom designed for their project, when it turned out later they were actually prefabricated off the shelf parts with a slight customization to the motherboard or the little circuit board in there to add some extra memory to cover Tor's overhead. Um, and then additional controversy has come out about the fact that the project is supposed to be open source, and all the project files are supposed to be available for public review. Well, the only files released so far have been some very small config files, one of which happened to have the password required to get into the admin panel for the device, which had an encrypted password, but without a whole lot of work, the community discovered the password for every single device was this going to be the same. Developer, all lowercase, ending in an exclamation mark. So that means if you didn't know to go in and change that, or you didn't bother, anybody could technically get on this device over a wireless connection, because the Wi-Fi also has no encryption or password by default, and get into your admin panel, either disable Tor or possibly get in and read the data as it goes through the device. What do you think about this whole controversy, Eric?
Well, I think that as far as the password thing goes, it's a little bit ridiculous. Most modems, most routers you buy come with either no password or default password for both the Wi-Fi and the admin panel. And a lot of times they're written on the device, and often they're something simple like admin admin. And so if it's not a problem for companies to make these commercial devices that do it, I don't see why it's a problem for them, as long as it's, of course, written in the instructions on how to change it as far as the password. As far as the controversy about the open source goes, well, they still also have time. I'm not sure if the project has been funded and items shipped yet, but either way, there's still a little bit of time to do that, and there's no reason why changes can't be made and they can't be pushed or downloaded easily. Uh, I don't know about most people, but with my router, I can easily go on and hit check for updates, and if there are any, it will download them, install them, and reboot, and then it'll be done with that. As far as the promises about the prefabbed, promises about the completely new board, that I can understand. They clearly said that it was going to be a, their own hardware that they designed, and they even went through talking about the cases they designed for them, even though it's quite obvious at this point that that was a lie. And the problem with lying about that isn't that they used a prefab board. If they would have said it was a prefab board that they customized, that wouldn't be a big deal because a lot of times that's how a lot of hardware comes to be. But the problem is about them lying. And if they lied about that, then what else have they lied about? What else are they going to lie about? So on and so forth. Their trust has been uh, compromised, and that's an important part of Kickstarters is trusting in the company to provide what they said and to deliver what they claimed. Not only that, but to even like use the money properly. Trust is a big deal for Kickstarter projects, and so the fact that they are have shown themselves to be untrustworthy in my part is the biggest problem.
Right, exactly. And I think that definitely is the biggest issue here is they've lost the trust of their community that they were trying to raise money from. And once you lose that trust, especially for a product that's at this point asking the community to fund them into existence, it's going to be really hard to earn that back.
True. And remember that if you even without this device, you can still use your Tor-enabled browsers, your Tor-enabled proxies and other things that already exist. And for some routers that you can buy, they exist like Tor software packages that the router supports the memory. Router will support that, and sometimes it's usually just best to stick with what you got and what you know already works. Um, the this crowdfunding thing, if it doesn't come through completely, legit at the end, if you're going to be using Tor, you should try and be as sure as possible that you're using what you should be, not something that may be compromised or otherwise untrustworthy.
Right, exactly. And what I think is interesting here, though, is despite the controversy and all of the internet blowing up about this recently, the project is actually still doing quite well. It originally was asking for a mere $7,500 of funding, and right now it's sitting at $590,000 with almost 9,000 backers. So it still has 25 days to go to fund. There's a lot of speculation as to whether Kickstarter themselves will pull the project because a lot of the claims are being proved false or simply outright lies. But this is going to be a big one, I think. This is going to be one of the most controversial Kickstarters in a while, pre-close. There's been a lot of Kickstarters that have closed and been controversial about how they've been handled, but this is the first one that comes to mind that's had this much controversy while still actively funding.
Yeah, to me, from someone with only a small grasp of what's going on, not a complete grasp, it really looks to me like a money grab more than anything.
And the fact that technically the box and the board could be bought off the shelf, they're looking at a price of around $50 retail once this is all said and done. And I don't know, I feel like this in concept should have been um, a DIY blog rather than a Kickstarter.
Yeah, the router that I believe was supposedly the base is supposed to be a very cheap, inexpensive, uh, $20 router from like just a generic Chinese made device for $20.
Right, exactly. That's what I've understood as well. And looking at this from the very beginning, my first thought when they were asking $50 retail was that I could probably turn around and make this on a Pogo plug or a Raspberry Pi. I don't see that being follow the controversy a little bit further. I've got the campaign flagged as a reminder to let me know 48 hours before it closes. So we'll see where things sit at that point if the campaign even gets to continue that far. But I don't know. I'm always fascinated by these Kickstarters that blow up and get so much attention. All right. Well, we had a couple of discussion topics, but honestly, nothing's that great. I'm going to go ahead and skip them for tonight. Uh, the show's running a little bit shorter than we usually run, but I know Eric's actually got somewhere to be, and I've got some other business I got to take care of. So sometimes real life has to take precedence. But I really hope everyone has enjoyed the show tonight. I wanted to make sure we got our Apple and Google coverage in because that's really the majority of the headlines tonight. So I'm looking forward to Monday where we can get a real news, get past the Google and Apple events, and get back to what's really happening out there in the technology world.
I've got labels to make.
All the labels. All your labels are belong to you.
That's right. I got a lot. I got many, many, many feet to print. Ha ha ha. Ha ha.
All right. Well, as always, I definitely want to encourage you guys to check out Eric's show, Pro Slackers After Dark, After Hours, After Dark. I don't know where that came from, but um, that is at proslackers.com/after hours. We just got a recent episode up there. It's a good one, so I encourage everybody to check that out. And this show, you can find us, techtwiceweekly.com. We're in iTunes, we're on Twitter, on Spotify. I'm really pulling up the wrong names tonight. Stitcher, as well as many other podcast directories. And then I always say, if we're not in your favorite podcast directory, drop me a line, feedback@techtwiceweekly.com, and I'd love to get our show added. I'm going to be working on getting us added to SoundCloud here soon. We just got approved to join their podcast beta program, so I'm going to be checking that out. So,
send us your mail. Send us your mail, even your hate mail.
Please, I would love to get some feedback from you listeners out there. Twitter @TechTwiceWeekly or email at feedback@techtwiceweekly.com. I'd love to get your messages. I would read them on the show and act on your feedback. This show is only as good as I have listeners. As much as I enjoy doing the show, I also enjoy it more because I know you guys are out there listening. So it means a lot to me. Thank you, everyone out there. All right. Well, any last thoughts you want to share with the listeners, Eric?
Labels.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back on Monday, business as usual, unless something catastrophic happens between now and then. All right. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.